couple of weeks ago, I was playing Death Stranding 2. Praise Kojima. On this mission that introduces the snowing area on Australia. Reintroduces snow area. Oh my god. Okay. And little did I know that obviously I had to climb this big ass mountain, snow mountain, and I had nothing. I had nothing for transportation or mobility. So I had to literally climb the mountain with my own 2 feet. Well, not my own 2 feet, but Sam's own 2 feet. And my speed exoskeleton, I exhausted it pretty quickly because I tried to just raw dog it and jump really high and get farther, but that just destroyed my battery because obviously, duh.
No. Wait.
My steps were really slow and cumbersome and extremely heavy. I had to literally walk little by little. So much of my stamina was being drained by the second. The snowstorm also started to intensify even further, creating this big mist or fog in the area. I had basically no depth of field whatsoever. I can only see my character and that's it. But, this was my first experience in the game that I had to actually, be like, oh shit, I have to just walk. Yeah, I felt very lost. I felt very hopeless. I felt kind of alone. And I don't know, my brain just kind of activated this sense of hopelessness and being lost and alone because I've been going through similar stuff. And no strangers to seeing and feeling how Death Stranding can lead players to feel very lonely and sad, but also it's also very interesting to see how much of those feelings relate to our own experiences. In this case, the experience of hiking a mountain, you don't know where it starts or ends. You have no idea where you're going or if things are going to be going okay, if you're going to overcome it, if you're going to reach it. I felt like I was just going through some sort of ego death. Ego death can be described as the process in which a person completely lets go of the sense of self. The sense of self can be surmised as an accumulation of beliefs that shape who you are, or what you think you are, your personal individual identity, how you label yourself, how you see yourself, how you want to be.
Who? Shinji Ikari.
That's me.
I am you. This self incorporates another self. The self has always been composed of two selves.
Two?
Yes, the self which is observed and the self which observes itself. To expound, there is the Shinji Ikari that exists in your mind, the Shinji Ikari in Misato Katsuragi's mind, the Shinji Ikari in Asuka Soryu's mind, the Shinji Ikari in Rei Ayanami's mind, and the Shinji Ikari in Gendo Ikari's mind. All are different Shinji Ikaris, but each of them is a true Shinji Ikari. What you fear is the Shinji Ikaris who exist in the minds of others.
I'm just afraid of being hated.
You're afraid of being hurt.
We tend to rely on these ideas to guide ourselves into our daily life. To know what we're doing, how we are doing, how close are we to reaching our goals, how close are we reaching to our ideal self, what is our ideal self? Are we going to the right path or the wrong path? But what happens if you don't know when you're going through the right path or the wrong path? What happens when you don't know what you are, what's left in terms of reaching where you want to go? Who you are as a person, that's ego death. That's the death of the ego. And this overall feeling can leave many people completely demoralized, depending on their reaction, of course. I feel like the death of the ego is something that a lot of people, including myself, want to feel and have felt. Playing games like Death Stranding, I frequently felt like this overall sense of loneliness, like all my efforts have been unheard of. I've gone unheard of, unseen, and I know that the journey to the top starts below our feet, but what happens when we can't even see when we're stepping in? I know that reverting to the present is very important. There's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday, there's only now. But I have also found great difficulty coming back to myself in these past couple months. As you saw in my last video, I've had quite a difficult time doing so. Even in meditation, and I feel like I still keep making the same mistakes of attaching myself too much to thought when I know exactly the symptoms and why, and that I need to stop doing that in order to enjoy and to go to the next level in terms of meditation. The spiral, the process of being better is very much up and down all the time. But I feel like I'm in a very much consistent down that just keeps repeating itself because of my internal wiring of my habits. An overall feeling that just doesn't feel very good. It was portrayed beautifully by this game. That experience alone made me feel and reflect over my entire thought process of how I've been doing, how I felt in this process of overcoming myself. It's not the first game that's made me feel this way, but the Stranding is the both of them are very inherently lonely and self-reflective in yourself as a person, and of course in Sam's character. You're thoroughly walking through barren wastelands, snowstorms, flooding areas alone, doing everything alone, not knowing when it will end. When will you reach your goal? When will you deliver your package? When will you reach where you need to be or where you want to be? Whether or not Kojima made this intentional or not doesn't matter, because I feel like we must feel before we observe and analyze. That applies to art. Like, I feel like a lot of times we need to feel what emotions are evoked by that piece of art before obsessing ourselves or trying to find the reason as to why the creator did this or did that. It's not uncommon for media and art to portray the hiking or climbing of a mountain something simplistic, something so simplistic as overcoming ourselves. For what is overcoming oneself as seemingly trying to prove ourselves or others that we are capable of the result. This pitfall of doing something because I need to prove myself that I'm capable of doing this is very much a common mistake we all may make, because we're following through with what the ego is asking of us, with what the idea or our sense of self is trying to accumulate and see. When we see that the path ahead is very much uncertain and that we don't know if we're going to be okay or not, that's when the sense of ego starts suffering. And we tend to tie ourselves into that sense of ego for assurance, for certainty. And when we don't have that certainty, we spiral. And this pitfall is very much represented as the concept of man trying to overcome nature. Death Stranding, no matter how much I tried to outrun the cold or temperature the mountain was portraying, it didn't budge. Inevitably, I ended up walking little by little, one step at a time. I had to walk the walk. In trying to reach the top of the mountain, we realized that we are the mountain. What I mean to say that we are the mountain is that we ourselves are the goal that we work towards. So in trying to fix our sense of completion and peace into a certain result, we only end up taking ourselves farther than we deserve to be. In tying our sense of peace to completing or reaching or doing something, we become so future oriented that we don't live here in the now. Because the future and the past doesn't exist. It's only thought. So we are essentially attaching ourselves into a thought. And attaching ourselves into a thought, when things don't go right, when things go wrong, we start suffering because we don't appreciate and we don't start living in the moment. In living in the moment, we see that just because our thoughts are telling us, oh, it didn't go this way, that doesn't mean that it didn't go this way, that means you're cooked. That doesn't necessarily mean you're cooked. In living in the now, we start seeing the opportunities that arise from living in the now. And you start seeing small crevices of opportunities to flow down naturally to where you want to go. We start appreciating more the little things and start seeing that even if we don't accomplish what we want to accomplish, we try and we do and we live and we experience Looking back on it now, I really have just been getting caught up in a certain mindset, which in turn makes me want to give into desperation. Makes me feel even more further away from reaching the place that I want to be in. Just like in Death Stranding. I feel like sometimes locking ourselves into this certain mindset can only serve to deframe our surroundings. One negative thing becomes more negativity that we see in our lives daily. We let it consume us. We surround ourselves with this fog or mist that allows us to not think properly, not to feel properly, not be able to move properly. This fog or mist is inherently our emotions, our belief systems, our wiring coming back to the mountain. That's why I say that many things, such as the conditions of the snow, the fog, the weather, depend entirely in our attitude. So, coming back to that Stranding, just like in real life, just dreading every single step that you go. When are we reaching? When are we gonna get to the mountain? When are we gonna go to our goal? When this, when that? We start just focusing so much on getting over it that we don't live in the process of it. So the process of getting into the top of the mountain just feels a lot more longer, eternal even. A lot of times we start focusing so much on that goal that we just end up spiraling and going through circles and circles and circles and circles, because obsessing over getting there is fueled by this negative emotion. In turn, for example, it's fueled by fear. I'm so afraid of failing that I focus too much on the goal and not the process of doing the thing you need to do now, living it and feeling it and experiencing it. So in turn, it's weirdly enough, it feels like the road just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the more we just focus too much on reaching it. I'm not saying that you should just lie to yourself and make yourself shovel shit because you love shoveling shit, but like in terms of the physical nature aspects of the game, in hating so much the snow, in hating it so much, we focus so much on hating it that we don't get to appreciate what the snow has to offer, that the seasons of spring and autumn don't. What I mean to say is that live every experience even if you don't fully like it, and learn things from it. Be open to let yourself learn from certain things that you necessarily like, not so much as to force yourself to be over it and just beg and pray that it just ends. That's why I see the fog or mist is inherently our emotions, our belief systems, our wiring. Coming back to the mountain, that's why I say that many things, such as the conditions of the snow, the fog, the weather, depend entirely on our attitude. So it is in learning that we are not separate from nature. We are the mountain. That's why I say we are the mountain, not only in a literal sense, but a metaphorical sense, that we are the goal we work towards, but we're also literally climbing a mountain, just like I was doing in Death Stranding, in appreciating it and seeing that we are part of this system. I start living the experience of it. That's why I felt like this attitude of inherent fear, because I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm going to reach the top. I don't know if I'm going to reach the bottom. I don't know if my decision will bring me to the freedom I'm looking for, to the goals I'm looking for, or maybe this one or that one, or this one or that one. I'm going too slow, maybe I'm going too fast. And inherently, in this fog in my head, this mist, this snow that doesn't allow me to move properly or go down properly, is basically immobilizing me, just like in real life. Because I attach myself to thinking. In attaching myself to thinking, I feel like a lot of times when we are overcoming ourselves, we end up trying to prove something. We're not proving something. And then we go back to ourselves, to our goals. But in going back to our goals, we start obsessing over reaching that goal, and we don't let go of ourselves. We force ourselves to do certain things because we feel like we need to do them to get where we are, in terms of overworking ourselves so much that we are not able to live in the present. So what I mean to say is that a lot of times in this experience of Death Stranding, and that experience that I had with Death Stranding, I reached the top of the mountain because I just walked little by little. I walked the walk. I didn't have any battery. I didn't have any methods of mobility. I just literally had to go little by little. In trying to do 1% every day, we reach that mental state of presence that we want so much to feel when we are in the goal. We feel it before we get there, and when we get there, it's not that big of a deal because we feel this presence, this sense of joy and happiness by just living it. So I feel like not only does the path become shorter, but we start realizing that the path was never about the path in itself, but by coming back to ourselves. And that's something I feel like we need to do more. So yeah, this is my video on Death Stranding and the death of the ego.